All right, so welcome to IS50B. We're going to be switching gears, doing less coding right now. I do want to get back to it, but some of the students aren't like heavy programmers, and we temporarily lost Rosenberg for that reason. So I want to hop back into doing Unreal Engine stuff that is more accessible to everybody. I do really want to do like a ray tracing engine inside of the console, just because it's funny as hell, but enough text-based coding for now. We're going to hop into UE4. So Walker was mentioning the Poisson distribution. It's like a Gaussian with thicker tails, and so a lot of things are actually modeled better by Poisson distributions than Gaussians. The problem with a Gaussian is that the Gaussian is based on what's called the central limit theorem, which means if you average together a lot of random events, the same independent events over and over again, you get a Gaussian, right? Like if you roll dice over and over again, you get a Gaussian distribution of the dice, expected dice rolls. If you flip coins, you get a Gaussian. The trouble is, in real life, a lot of things aren't independent, and we think they are, right? Like the most famous example of that would be the stock market, right? We think the stock market moves up, it moves down, it's random. It's not random, right? Like as the GME, the GameStop bubble showed, sometimes it is not random. Like, you know, everybody's like diamond hands, hold, and the stock goes up. And the trouble is that there were financial models that were based on the notion that stock prices are Gaussian. What's it called? It's like Merton Black-Scholes or Black Merton Scholes. I don't remember the name of it. Okay, it is Black Merton Scholes. Okay.
You're not streaming, by the way.
I'm not streaming, by the way. Oh, I am recording, but I'm not streaming. Okay, there we go. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, this is just a mathematical model they made for the stock market, and basically it's to generate risk, right? And if you price your options, you know, like these buying and selling things, like they were doing with GameStop, if you price them based on the notion that the movement's random, then if any non-random event comes around, you get wiped out, because it's a once in a 10 trillion possibility that it happens. But these once in a 10 trillion things happen every year, you know, like they're fairly common, because things are not actually a bunch of independent random events. So, yeah, we don't need to talk more about that. But yeah, so the Poisson distribution in some ways is a better way of modeling it, because the tails are thicker. The extreme events are more likely. Whereas with Gaussians, extreme events beyond like 4 or 5 sigmas are extremely unlikely. The idea that a stock could go from 30 to 300 should never even happen in the universe's lifetime, you know, and it went up and down, you know, a lot and often. Okay, so let me just show you what I've been doing in IS50A. I've been kind of running through. We haven't really done much with blueprints yet. I really need to do more of that. This is we've been doing a lot with materials and textures this year, because it's something that I've historically kind of ignored, because I consider myself a programmer and not an artist. And so anytime I hear myself saying, oh, I can't do that, then like there's a little part in the back of my brain that's like, yeah, you should do something about that, you know. And so I've been working on doing material stuff. So you see this is a glass. It's actually water. And it's a ball of water, and you can see it's got reflection, refraction, and distortion in it. It's got a Fresnel effect, right? Fresnel effect, and it kind of looks kind of cool. And then I've got a landscape over here, and the landscape I did not paint by hand. The landscape is automatically generating textures on the landscape for me, and I can also paint textures on top of this, which is a nice little combination. I've got 2 different kinds of water in here, and this water here is what Mulia was talking about prior to class starting, which is you just take a landscape and you intersect a plane with it. And when you do that, you get these nice contour is following the landscape, and it actually looks pretty decent. If you look at the water, you can see that there is, or there was, it's not drying right now. There's actually distortion and things like that. There we go. Thank you, Unreal Engine. Nope. What? I'm not even moving. I'm not even moving. I promise. Okay. Well. And then if I fall in, you see how it turns like dark blue, and then I'm going to start floating up to the surface. Again, I'm not touching anything. So I can show you guys how to do all that stuff real fast. I've got a swim speed down here, and it's kind of dark and gloomy because I'm under the water right now. I'm not using fog for this. I'm using a post-processing volume, which I need to teach you guys about as well. So the thing is not doing the shader on it. So weird. So weird. Why are you not doing the shader? Anyhow, so what I did was I added an animated normal map to it. So there's actually supposed to be waves, like you saw briefly on there. There's supposed to be waves moving like this, and it has refraction, and so it's refracting the water coming out of it, and it looks nicer than what we see right here, which is not really doing the whole thing, which is really weird. Anyhow, so so how do we do this? So this is kind of what I taught you guys in IS-58 when you guys took it. See, and it has a nice little contour there, and you can also animate it up and down. If you animate it up and down, then you get these nice little waves that kind of move and follow the contours and stuff like that. But there's new stuff in here that I haven't taught you. Did you use a panner to animate it? Yes, I did use a panner node to animate it, and I've actually got multiple panner nodes. Although you can't tell because the damn thing... There we go. All right. So I've actually got multiple panner nodes in here, and so you can see that there's a lighter and darker area on there, which I kind of made to represent the water caustics. It's not casting the caustics on the ground, so it's not technically caustics. Caustics is the name for the light patterns you get from, like, have you ever seen a pool? Or I can probably show you what caustics look like over here. There we go. I've got caustics over here. So it's those light patterns you see at the bottom of pools and things like that. I kind of am simulating it. It's not actually casting the caustics on the floor, and so it's not truly caustics. It's just a... What the hell, dude? It's just a surface pattern. I don't know. It's just a surface pattern, but it looks decent enough. I'm not even moving. I'm not even moving, dude. I'm not touching anything. Okay, anyhow, so there's an animated normal map on there using a panner. A panner node will animate textures for you. And I've actually got two different textures panning in different directions. So I've got the light pattern on here that is moving this way, and then I've got waves and another pattern moving sort of that way. And you can see as the normal map animates, you can see sunlight reflects off the normal map realistically. And it's a pretty decent effect, if I have to say so. I don't know why it's all buggy like this right now, but you can see it refracting through here, and yeah, it's decent. It's not, I would actually want to work on it more, but it's decent enough. So how did I do that? So I'm going to edit this material, and you can see I use parameters for a lot of these things, so I can instance it and change the things without having to recompile the shader every time. We've got a couple different colors, one for the lighter, one for the darker. That's what creates that foam caustic effect. And I'm lerping between it using this kind of caustic water pattern here. And so it's so there's going to be areas of lighter and darker blue, and it's going to use this texture pattern here to pick whether the lighter or the darker is going to do, and it will blend nicely between them so you don't get sharp lines. The tiling pattern I can control with a parameter, so how dense those waves are can be controlled. And then I've got a panner node. A panner node animates a texture. And so you feed that panner into the UV node. And what that will do is it'll animate the UV coordinates on it. So you can animate normal maps as well using this trick. So I've got the normal map here. And the normal map also has a panner feeding into it. And so that's why you see the light reflecting off the waves, because it's not actually animating anything. It's the normal map that's sliding around on the surface. It's a flat surface. It's just a plane. It's like two rectangles, right? Like, or two triangles, right? But it looks like you've got all this complicated geometry and smooth, waves and stuff going on, because what I have is a normal map that represents water, and I'm just sliding that normal map around, and so it creates these cool waves, right? Let's see if I can get some more sunlight on it. Sunlight's kind of dim right now. I turned the sun down. But you can see the sun reflections off the normal map here. And so this looks like very complicated, but it's actually just two triangles with an animated texture on them. Okay, so I've got the colored part going around there. They're sliding around, and I've got a third color, and I'm lerping between these two guys and this guy using this pattern, and this pattern is this pattern here is sliding around. So how it lerps between these three different shades of blue is there's a denser pattern, and it moves around, which creates those kind of caustic effects. You can adjust the specular roughness and opacity of it. I have it roughness is 0, which is shiny, spec 10 is shiny, opacity 0.4, it's pretty transparent water. And then we've already talked about these panner nodes that animate it. Basically, you can just feed in the direction, and you feed in a speed, and good to go. And then I've got a Fresnel node in here, which is doing the refraction for me. So you could just hook up, like this, you could just hook up refraction of 0.3, and it works fairly well. But if you want, you can do a Fresnel effect, which will do, it computes the angle of incidence of the light. If you guys have ever studied physics, there is a angle of incidence for light coming through, if you've studied optics. And so my speeds sped up too much. So based on the angle you look at it, it computes an angle coming out of it, and you can do cool effects like this here using a Fresnel node. For the water though, I turned it off and just used a flat refractivity index of 1.3. So that's why you see the world beneath it rippling. Wait, is refraction a function you made? It is a standard that you can apply to any texture, except not any texture. Not any texture, no sir. But any texture, yeah, it's part of the engine. I didn't do it. There's a lot of math that goes into making that work. I didn't do it. Hell no. I'm just feeding 1.3 into it. Right. Yeah. But in order to make it work on a material, you have to pick, with nothing selected here, you have to pick what kind of material it is. And so the materials we did in 1.5 were all opaque materials. Can't see through them. And so if I were to turn this to opaque, you'll see that the refraction node turns off. All the nodes are still there, and so if you undo it or turn it back on, it'll come back. But you have to make sure it is a translucent thing. Then it will do those calculations for light passing through it. You'll also see opacity turn off. Like if I make it opaque, you'll see that opacity turns off also. It's still there, it's just not used because it is let's move the node, that's all. Okay. And there are, yeah, two-sided. I might want, you know what? Let's make it two-sided. Can I do it two-sided? No, maybe not. Oh, it's saving. I moved you to an SSD for a reason, Unreal Engine. Okay. Let's see if I can make it two-sided. True. Okay. So now it should work if I go beneath the surface of the water. They've done a good job making it simple. Yeah. I mean, simple enough. Simple enough you can teach, college freshmen how to do it. I've tried this on Seaside 1 before, and it maybe a little too complicated for them. So if you look at this now, you see how it's two-sided now? So the back sides of the cubes are being drawn now, right? So that's interesting. And the back side of the sphere is being drawn now as well. It's definitely a little more interesting looking. And you can see this is my water. Okay. So if I come down here, from above, it shouldn't look any different. except it's still glitching. I don't know why it's doing that. And then if I come below it, you should still be able to see the waves from beneath. Maybe not because it's a plane. Yeah, fair enough. It's not a solid object. Yeah, either way. But that's the idea. So you can have it draw from the back as well. All right. I guess I don't need that. Whatever. Okay. So what else have I done new this semester? Yes, the new water system. So this is new in 4.26. And so you can actually have water features that interact with the landscape. And so what I did was I just created a river, and this is a spline. A spline is a curve, and you can adjust the spline points like this. And if I move it, watch, it'll start clipping the landscape dynamically. You see that? So it just clips right through whatever mountains you have, and as you adjust these things. That actually looks better than what I had before, maybe. I don't know. I can pull it up like that, and then it'll raise land so that it's not water floating in midair. Over here I've got a blend set up so that it actually blends between the lake water and the river water. You can see it coming down and slowing and turning into lake water. It's got caustics automatically. You can turn foam on. It's animated. See, it's got waves. So this is a lake node. This is a river node. And then if I fly up, you can see I've got an ocean node. So I've got this landscape here, and I dragged an ocean on it. And if I select the ocean node, you can see that if I deleted it, or if I just hide it, let's see, zoom. Where are visibility? Hide? No. If I delete it, delete it. Yep, that was the name I deleted. If I delete it, you will see the landscape reappears. Right? So it actually doesn't undo. Please come back. Please come back. Thank you. It actually doesn't delete any of your landscape data. The landscape data is still there. It's just clipped. It's cut away by the water nodes. And again, this is set by splines, and so I've got splines kind of surrounding the island, and they create these kind of smooth curves. Smooth curves don't exactly look realistic. This looks very artificial. It's a very artificial looking river, and there's options on how it clips. So you see how there's like this angle coming out here, and there's a border here. So those are all parameters that you can set. And the river speed you can set, and the fact I think I put waves on the water as well. Let's see. It's kind of subtle. You should be able to see like bigger swells of water going down, as well as the little ripples and stuff like that. This, looks pretty bad because it clipped away the landscape, right? And so rather than the water coming out of the landscape, it has a little border here that looks really kind of fake and artificial, and so it looks like a water slide more than anything else. And so you have to do some. You have to play with it in order to make it look good. What I would actually recommend is doing what we did last semester, and actually just turning off all of that clipping, and just kind of get the landscape into a shape that you like it, and then fall off settings, fall off angle, fall off width to 0, edge offset to 0, and now the river will appear directly on top of the landscape with no clipping whatsoever. And so that will give you the effect like we had last time of this, right? Because right now it won't it doesn't interact. If I undo that, all those neat contours you get, like the trick that I taught you, they go away because it just deletes the landscape around it, and it always just ends up looking very artificial and kind of water slidey. And so the better way of doing it is just to not have a fall off at all, and which is that clipping plane that it creates, or you can set the clipping plane to like 90 degrees, and then it and that might look a little bit better. But really, I would just mess with the landscape itself. And look at that, the water's coming out from that. It's coming out from the sides now. That does not look good. You? Yeah, and so all those things you can play with. There we go. That's at least decent looking. It's probably a little bit better than what I had before, because it doesn't have the gutters going down the sides. I got rid of the edge on it. Okay, so yeah, and so that is that. And how do you get that to work? Okay, so let's talk about that real fast. Save. I kind of like the new look on that. Let's save that one. Does it update the water as you hand sculpt the land? Yes. No. No, the water doesn't move, but it'll keep clipping. So if I were to come into the landscaping tool here, whenever we're ready, there we go, landscaping tool. And if I sculpt it, so you can see I can like sculpt and like, you know, make new landscape. It will keep clipping see how the river keeps clipping it? So even though I'm technically making a mountain there, the river is cutting away the new terrain that I put in. Okay. So it will clip your landscape in real time, and you can click and drag things around, and you will see that it will. I mean, that's pretty sweet. I mean, honestly. Create like the Grand Canyon effect. Yeah. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. Maybe I like it that way better. Do I? Nah. Okay. Can you adjust the depth? Yep. Okay. So how do you get to that? So you have to go to edit plugins, and under the plugins setting, type water. And you have to turn on both shallow water and water. And these are super cool, neat, awesome stuff that are new in 4.26. Once you turn them on, it'll pop up a dialog saying reboot. Click on reboot. And then, in order to put them into the world, under place actors on the left-hand side here, just search for water over here, and you can see all the different options we have. Rivers, oceans, lakes, I've already showed you. Water, body, island. Let's not put that under it. It's over here. And that'll put actually an island in the middle of an ocean, and that does a reverse clipping, right? Like it puts an island in the ocean, you know. Water body exclusion volume. Pull that out. Does that not work? I haven't used that one yet. Yeah, so basically, yeah, they just play really nicely with landscaping, stuff like that. So got a little cool offshore island there, and there's a lot of options. And this is before you even get into like the materials and things like that. The curve handles like if you go underwater, you can see that it clipped the. You see how it like clipped the landscape down, so that like as you go into the ocean, it gets progressively more deep. That's controlled by a curve that you can edit. You can change the fall off, like how it clips the landscaping. You can blur the edges on it so it's not completely straight. The waves, there's all sorts of options on the waves, like a lot of options on the waves. Max amplitude, 500. Right. 5,000. We're on. It's like interstellar. Right. So a lot of options just on the waves, a lot of options on the materials. If you go to the material and edit that, you can see these are all of the, there's a master material for the ocean, and you can override any of these things. The fluid sim flow density, the far normal Fresnel power, all these options on foam if you want to have white water coming out of the ocean. Yeah, there's a lot to it. Let's turn Caustics on, why not? And then it'll recompile the shader. And now there's Caustics, you see that? They're not, again, they're not appearing on the surface down here, but it looks like it is from above at least. They don't look very good, do they? It's not very realistic looking. Huh. Oh, whatever. What else should I talk about? So I put an exponential height fog in here. We talked a little bit about fog last time. The fog, you can see if you actually drag the fog around, you can actually have areas with like low-lying amounts of fog and stuff like that. So you can actually have fog like in the lower valleys and have the peaks be clear, which is pretty cool also. Those waves look really good. Those aren't mountains. Yeah, interstellar. Yeah, so you know, having valleys filled with fog is pretty cool. We went through a lot of the options on fog last time. We don't need to play with that again, but you can create really neat effects with fog. We did God rays last time, right, Muya? Talk about God rays. I would need to create a blocking term of some sort. Yeah, so we don't need to worry about that again. You basically turn on volumetric fog, and then in the sun, you might have to turn on atmospheric sun, cast shadows, clouds. Where are you? Light shaft bloom, you turn that on, right? And then that'll do God rays. And you can play with those thresholds as well. This is a nice effect. Easy to do in Unreal Engine, just check the box. All right, but what I really want to show you guys today is these automatic landscapes. So, is the fog expensive? I mean, sure, I guess. The cheap way of doing fog is you do what's called a per pixel fogging. And so what you do is you basically, after you've rendered the scene, the game engine knows how far away every point is, and then you can add, let's say, white to it based on how far it is away. So you could say near clipping plane 100 meters, far clipping plane 200 meters essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to draw anything past 200 meters. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add fog. There's no fog added up until 100 meters away, and then as we go from 100 to 200 meters, we're going to lerp more and more fog in until it's pure white. And so what that would do is it has the effect of turning to white any pixel further than 200 meters away. And it looks like you're just walking through like, fog. But it's not in place. This is actually fog in place, right? This is, this actually exists in the game world, so to speak. Whereas screen space fog basically just looks at every pixel and it just is a very even, uniform fog. That's how we used to do fog back in the day. It's fairly inexpensive, to do this fog. I don't know, might cost you a couple frames per second. Depends on your system. Does the water default have Gerstner waves and foam and stuff? No. By default, the waves are the other kind of waves. Click here. They are where are you? There's so many options. By default, they are water waves asset reference. And so you need to switch them to Kirshner waves to get the more realistic looking waves. Add more waves. Yeah. Tons and tons and tons of options for that stuff. I spent literally hours playing with it, just trying out all the different stuff. Okay. Yeah, I want to show you guys this auto landscape here. Okay. So the fog's cool, right? Fog's cool. All right, so I'm going to create a new map. I'm just going to walk you through it, okay? So some of you guys, in order to not do the coding, you did a first-person arena. And so we really need to talk about choke points and things like that. But for now, your next assignment is going to be the same as the IS-50A people, where you're going to have to create water and landscape. Okay, so I'm going to go into landscape mode, and I'm going to lower the landscape so it's below the default starting platform. And I am just going to hit create, and that's going to generate a landscape with no material on it whatsoever. Man, I made some really ugly textures, huh? Circuit platform. That's just amazingly ugly. Okay. Anyway, that's all we're here for. We are here to make a smart landscape. And so by default, you can just sit there and you can kind of spray paint up mountains and stuff like that. The trouble with this approach is that the mountains all kind of lame, right? You get these kind of really weathered mountains that they're all round and stuff like that. And so you can kind of like erode them, and you know, it just looks like you're just sculpting, taffy. You know what I mean? So I actually purchased some assets on the marketplace for $40. I got a set of height maps. Remember, landscaping is just a white and black image, right? White means high elevation, black means low elevation. And so I actually purchased some height maps so that I was intending on just importing an entire height map as my thing, but what I found was that it actually is like a bunch of stamps, like when you stamp something. And so if you could probably find things like this for free as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Sculpt, and I'm going to make my brush really big, 50,000. Okay, that's too big. 20,000, still pretty big. 15,000. And I am going to, rather than just making a giant tofu mountain like that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the alpha channel from this, which is, in other words, whether it's white or black, to choose which areas are going to raise up and which ones are not going to raise up. So what I did was I went here to, I'm in Sculpt, and I choose alpha. You can also do patterns and things like that to do a similar thing. But I'm just going to choose alpha, and I have auto rotate turned on, so do that. And then I can just get mountains. Hey. The longer I hold it, the taller the mountains get. And so the geology department's probably screaming at me right now because mountains don't follow this pattern, but I can switch out which stamp I use, and I can do craters. And if you hold down Shift when you click, it actually will imprint it into the ground. So that looks like the blade from Halo. Kind of can stamp a crater into the ground here. That. And this creates much more realistic looking landscapes than before. I can add a lake to here. And just put down a little lake right there. It's too close to my starting spot. Let's put it over here. More of a canyon now, huh? Hold down Shift again. Create canyons really easily. What kind of file is a height map? A height map is just a black and white image. That's it. That's really all it is. And so you just use those as your stamps and just shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. And it can create very nice, very interesting looking terrain. If you shift click a lot, you can create canyons and things like that. And you can just make really nice looking terrain as, you know, just by using these stamps. Sand dunes. Too big. Again, don't sue me, geology department. This is not good geology, but yeah, look, sand dunes. Right? Volcanoes. A little too much. Right. And so you can just make really nice, you know, really nice landscapes really easily using this approach. All right, so enough making the landscape. Let's make a automatic texture for it. So, how do we make a texture? Well, come into Bill, and I am going to right-click, or just choose Add, whatever. I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to call this guy select a PNG. Yep, a PNG. Yep. You can import your height map data from Bridges, and you can directly import, you know, geo data into your game world, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, the tool that we used in 26 2 years ago is no longer with us. The U.S. Geological Service used to have the ability to export a height map for any section of the world, and they got rid of it. So, yay, awesome. They only export to GIS format now, which means you have to have ArcGIS or some converter, and it was too complicated for me to figure out at the time. All right, so where was I? New material. Okay, new material. I'm going to call this IS50B Smart Land, because I already have a Smart Land, because I just did this demo yesterday for the IS50A people. So I'm going to come in here, and I have a new material. So I'm going to start off by just making a like a color or something like that. You know, I'm just going to go hold down 3 and click. Gives me a color picker. I'm going to make it just a bright, obnoxious red color. Just going to make it pure red. There we go. The most obnoxious color there is. I'm going to drag it onto here. Hit save. And I'm going to drag Smartland onto the landscape. Node. Landscape. Landscape. Where's your material? Landscape. There you are. So I'm going to drag IS50 Smartland onto landscape material. And you'll see that the whole landscape turns this bright, obnoxious red with like the land looking like it's made out of plastic or red tofu or something. It looks pretty garbage, right? So Prada, are you interested in this? I don't know what the reaction meme there was about. So I'm gonna set the specular on this to 0.1. Landscapes usually aren't very shiny. click roughness of 0.85. And sure, let's put a normal map on here. So texture parameter 2D, I'm going to make it a parameter so that we can change it later. And this will be the normal map. Normal map is going to feed into the normal map and to ambient occlusion. And I'm going to pick a normal map here. If you search for _n, you can look at all the different normal maps that I have. I'll just use the first one I find. Maybe not the first one I find. Ah, what I do? I deleted it. Ooh, that's interesting. Slate. Slate has a normal map. There we go. And we need to scale it properly. If we don't scale it properly, who knows what scale it's going to come out at. It's a landscape after all. So there you go. You can see the normal map. That's the default scale for a normal map. Looks a little better now. It still looks like hot garbage, but a little bit better. It's no longer taffy. Are all those values from 0 to 1? Spec can be bigger than 1, but in general, yeah, they're all from 0 to 1. Metallic is 0 to 1. Roughness is 0 to 1. Spec, if you really want to make it shiny, you can add over 1 if you want. Okay, so yeah, these things I guess should be parameters. Parameters are the proper way of doing it. So I'm going to create a scalar parameter, and you are going to be called spec. Keep doing that. Click spec. It's going to default to 0.1 with a minimum of 0, maximum of 10, let's say. If you create a minimum and a maximum, it'll give you a slider for the thing. Control W. You could be called metal, metallic, and we want this to be not metallic by default. And Control W again, and we'll call this guy roughness. And then for the color, we will do a vector parameter, and this will be called color1, and we'll Control W and call this guy color2, because we're going to have 2 colors on it. And right now, though, we're just going to lerp linear and terp. So for the first color parameter, we're going to just have it be obnoxious red. And for the second color parameter, we're going to just be obnoxious green. We're going to make this a very obnoxious thing by default. And if you don't pass anything in to alpha, what will happen is it will just use 0.5 by default. Okay, so right now it's going to be obnoxious yellow color. And if we save this, you can see everything is really, really ugly. Okay. And it looks shiny again. Did I forget to set a parameter? Probably. Spec goes from 0 to 1. Roughness, roughness should be at 0.85 by default or so. Okay. So now I'm going to... What do I want to do? I want to show you guys how to make a landscape change, the texture change based on the angle of the landscape. Oh, before I do that, I had to show you how to do tiling on a landscape as well. So UV node, normally you would use a text coordinate, texture coordinate node for most of these things. Most of the time you feed a texture coordinate into the UV node that controls the tiling. But for this one, we're going to use a landscape. What is it? Landscape layer coordinates. And we are going to multiply this times a parameter. And the parameter is going to be called landscape normal tiling. and that's going to default to 0.1. And we're going to multiply these together. Actually, I can just hold down M and click. And so if we do this, then that will allow us to control the tiling of the landscape. Mustard Valley, yeah. Once we instance this thing. Right now we don't have any instances, so I'm just kind of setting defaults. You can see I changed it from 1 to 0.1, and so you can see the rocks look a little bit better now. They're not quite so ugly as before, but still it's this garish yellow color. So what I really want is the ability to have flat areas be one and angled areas be another. Or I could do it by elevation. I could have it be areas above a certain elevation are one texture, areas below a certain are another. And that's actually what I did when I made my virtual reality video game. It was textured based on elevation and angle. But I had to do that by hand. In Unreal Engine, there's a node for that. And so it is called WAP, which is landscape. No. Here, roll the line blend. What did I type before? I don't know. So this is a node. It's called WAB, World Align Blend. And what this will do is it will basically output essentially a number from 0 to 1. It's designed to be fed into a lerp node. That's why it says alpha there. And what this will do is this will get the angle of the landscape and return a value from 0 to 1. And so what we want, these two parameters here are the important ones, and they're going to control what angle is the cutoff threshold and how quickly it blends from one to the other. So blend sharpness, we will right click and choose promote to parameter. So this is, by the way, this is a cool shortcut. I don't know if you know this before Walker, but it's a neat shortcut. You right click on an input pin, and you just choose promote to parameter, and then you can, you don't have to go to the effort of, typing all this stuff. I'm just gonna call this one blend sharpness and blend bias. And so blend bias, I'm gonna have default to -10, and blend sharpness, I'm gonna default to 30. And then you can see the preview, it's guessing what it's gonna look like. And so I'm gonna come out here, and you can see it's working, right? So the flat areas are green for grass, and the red areas are red for cliffs. Okay. So that's why I like starting with giant, bold primary colors, is it will show you, where the things are. And this actually looks pretty close to what I would actually end up with. If you want, you can play with those values, but it's actually pretty good looking right now. Okay, so rather than using colors, though, we are going to use materials, right? And so one way we can do this is we can just have a texture parameter 2D, texture parameter 2D, and this will be called texture 1, and we will Control W it and call this guy texture dose, and then we can come up with some better textures like grass, sure, and then for this guy we can come up with rock of some sort, granite. Don't take it for granite, all right? Granite. That. And did I do that backwards? I might have done that backwards. I think I did that backwards. granite and grass. Apply. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so you can see the granite is tiled all to hell. It looks garbage. The human eye picks up lines, picks up patterns, and this just looks really, really horrible. So we need to have tiling parameters as well for these guys. So I'm going to go, I'll just copy this. Select that, Control W, move it up here. And you can't have two parameters with the same name. If I change this to like 0.2, then it would change this to 0.2 as well. So I'm going to call this texture 1 tiling. Or I guess I could leave it the same because I might want it to tile at the same rate as the normal map, come to think of it. But and then for this one, this will be called texture 2 tiling. So you can adjust these parameters separately. Once we instance it, save. And it's defaulting now to 0.1 instead of 1. And so that by itself should clean it up pretty well. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And what we really want to do though is we want to have some macro texture variation in here. Because right now, yeah, like if you zoom out, you can see how the grass pattern repeats over and over again. And so what we could do is just steal the grass material, not the grass texture, the grass material. And so in order to do that, yeah, first, let's take a look at this. So does this look, that looks pretty decent, I think. And then if you want to do that again to get a third material on there, like I have here, then you can have, this is the one that was in my world. This is some macro texture variation here. So I've got different levels of Perlon noise, and those get multiplied in times the textures. And so I have my own kind of crappy macro texture variation that I stole from a YouTube video. The way the Epic does it is better. And so I've actually got four different textures, and then they get blended together, and they've got these different WAB nodes here that blend with different parameters, and those things just basically end up selecting between these different between grass and dirt and rock. And then I've got another layer here that allows me to spray paint road on top of it. Yeah, okay. But I'm only going to do 2 textures for now. But you can feed the output of one of these world align blends into another one. And then you can have different thresholds and different angles and have multiple different automatic textures applied to stuff. All right, world align blend. Okay, so yeah, I didn't do this yesterday, so I'll do it today. Let's see if we can make this work. I want to actually bring in a material instead of just a texture. You can double up and have it do it by flatness and height. Yep, you can definitely do it that way. So you can have a height blending, so you have snow up top. You can have angles, and then you can also manually paint roads on top of it. But do I want to show you guys how to do that first? Do you guys want to learn how to paint roads on top of the landscape, or would you rather get a real material in here rather than me kind of half-assing it with a texture? Real material. Okay, cool. So starter content, materials, and so they've got this grass material. A texture is just a picture. A texture means a 2D picture usually. And so all I've got is this picture, and it's being tiled over and over again here. The grass material has what's called macro texture variation on it. So if we zoom out, you can see that it actually has the grass picture here. It's got a dead grass picture here. It's got another grass picture here. And it is blending them using the UV texture nodes. It is blending them together at different scales. And so it tiles one at short range, and then it adds noise to it, and then it blends between live grass and dead grass, blending using the output of this noise channel here. And then this texture coordinate is at 0.05. This texture coordinate's at 1. So this is 20 times the size of the other one, and it blends them together. And when you get far enough away, it turns into green. And so there's all this work they did so that if you put grass on just like an object, like let's make, it doesn't matter. You've seen it before. If you put grass on the world, your eye doesn't pick up any of those tiling patterns. And so rather than me making it myself, what I'm going to do is just select all of it except for the very final node here. Okay. Copy. Come back into my build folder here, make a new thing, and I am going to make what is called materials and textures. I'm going to make a material function. Material functions can be imported into other material nodes. So you don't have to, I could just copy and paste all that in. That's going to be garbage. So I'm going to call this one grass fun. And grass fun is going to have all that stuff pasted into it. And the result of all of this is going to be called make material attributes. There. And so basically, it takes as input all those things that go into a normal material. In this case, we've got color, which you'll sometimes hear called as albedo. And then the normal map is being computed here. It's the normal map. And toss it into object inclusion as well. And what else did we have in the grass node? Roughness of 1. Okay, well, that's easy. So basically, what this is going to do, it's going to recreate the grass material as a function. Save, and we are now done with you. Done with you, and then let's do one more of these. So there's grass function here. So let's maybe do some sandstone slate. Yeah, sure, slate sounds good. So again, I just zoom out, select all the stuff except for the very final node, Control C. Yeah, don't hit Control W for close. That's duplicate. Copy, just close it. No changes, please. Thank you. And then I'm going to come back into the build folder, and I'm going to call this one material function, and you will be named Slate Fun. I come into Slate Fun, I hit paste. And same thing here. Make material attributes. Results of that go into the output node. Okay, and I need to go back into it because I completely forgot. Materials slate. Okay, so they are using color, roughness, and normal. Okay, so same three things as before, except their roughness is more complicated. Roughness there, and then the normal node, the normal result is coming out there. No idea how they're doing it. I'm just copying and pasting, and now hit save, and I now have a function that will bring an entire material in. Okay, so now I can right-click and just let's drag it to the side, come back into Bill, and I will snap that left a little bit, and I can just drag in slate function, cool, and I can drag in grass function, cool, all right. And so these, by making them functions, that's an entire material that just appears as a single node. This is, I could have copied and pasted all 90 of those nodes into here, but my lord, that seems like a pain in the ass, and it's going to be big and ugly and stuff like that, and there'd be lines everywhere. So by just making them into functions, you can just pull out from this. And when you pull out from this, all you can really do is break it open. So we're going to break material attributes, and then this will give us access to all of the all this stuff. I'm going to break it open. And now, if I wanted to grab just the color of the grass, I could feed that into B. And I can feed the color of slate into A. Save. And I don't have the tiling set right now, but I should show you how to do it. I almost got really excited. I thought that was my landscape. It's like, look at you. That was cool. Where was I? That work? Is that slate? I actually forget what it looked like before. We got lines on the map from the lighting needing to be rebuilt. Let me rebuild the lighting real fast. Put it on preview. Okay. So do you guys understand that process? I know I'm going kind of quickly, but basically the world aligned blend allows you to choose between two different textures, or you can lerp between anything really. This works for the normal maps and the roughness and all that stuff. You can lerp all of them based on the normal. The direction the land is pointing. Now, one problem with this is that the no importance volume is found, and the scene is so large. Okay, so one problem with this is that there's a normal map, right? And the normal map adds... The normal map actually changes the normals. And so areas where the normal map creates a flatter area, you'll get these weird patches of green on here. You guys see that? So a better way of doing that is to come back in here to Smartland, and the WAB node is it uses the normal map to determine the angle, right? And so if you have a normal map that is going to create areas that are shallow, that can cause problems. So what you want to do is use with vertex normals instead. So that actually uses the angle of the landscape triangle rather than each individual pixel having its own normal. And if you do that, you see those weird green blotches go away. Okay, so what we're picking up is the normal map on the grass is creating the patterns, not the grass itself. Okay. So come back in here and let's fix it. Okay, so these old guys, we can get rid of those. The landscape coordinates, we should probably keep those in there somewhere. Well, let's do this first. So I'm going to pull out from the normal. This one goes into B, right? Yeah. Lerp. This new mouse is so sensitive. Normal. Okay. So we're going to take the same result from the world align blend, and we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to blend the normals as well, so that we have a different normal map for grass, and we have a different normal map for slate. So I'm going to pull out the normal map here, and he's A, and he is B. And so if you have wires coming in from elsewhere, it's usually a good idea to comment them so you don't have to scroll up and look. So I'm going to feed that into normal, feed that into ambient occlusion, and there we go. So you can see that the grass texture no longer has any tiling on it. And so if you zoom in real close, you can see that there's patches of light, dark, that are blended using the small scale noise pattern. You zoom out, and your eyes still don't pick up any patterns. You zoom out further, you zoom out further, you zoom out further, and eventually the thing turns into green, right? As it's got a distance camera blend for things really far away. But then if we come in and zoom in on the slate, you can see that there is a normal map on the slate, right? And it's pretending to be a rough surface. And the slate has its own texture. The grass has its own texture. The slate has its own micro and macro texture variation, so the human eye doesn't pick up patterns on it. It looks pretty good. And so that way you can just use one of the official materials rather than you kind of half-assing it yourself with just a texture. A grassy volcano doesn't really look good, but whatever. All right, so got 10 minutes left. Yeah, we technically need to do the same thing for the roughness as well, right? So, roughness, and we are going to blend between the two and put that into here. You can just make the volcano its own landscape if you want to make it more realistic. You know, I could just retexture it, you know. So I can override all of this stuff. I'll show you guys how to do that in a second. So yeah, so basically you can see the slate is a little bit shinier. Ooh, that's way shiny. Why are you so shiny? Odd. The grass is like super shiny. Yeah. I wonder if it. Oh. Specular set to 0.1. Yeah. Just overload it. Overwrite it. Okay. And then, yeah, okay. So let's just end. We'll call this IS50B Smart Map. So let's show you guys how to instance that in case you need a reminder on that. So I've got my IS50B Smartland material. Right click, choose Create Material Instance, and then I'll just leave that as the default name. And I will choose my landscape, and I'm going to replace the material with a material instance. And so as you see, nothing changed. But the nice thing about a material instance is that all of those parameters that we set, we can now override. So I can click and choose blend bias, blend sharpness, snap it to one side of the screen, snap the preview, full screen it. No, full screen it. There we go. So I can, F11 is full screen by the way. And so I can kind of, you know, just kind of get an eyeball of what I'm going to change. And so as I drag these values up and down, you will see the areas that are rock versus grass will change. And so you can change kind of how verdant your world is. By affecting the blend sharpness, you can control how wide the patches of green grass are. The smaller the sharpness, the less grass. And these numbers are really fiddly. So there's actually a very small range. Like you saw, like at 35, it's almost all grass. At like 20, it's all rock. And so at 25, like there's barely any grass at all, right? It's already blending to rock. And so there's actually a very narrow range of values that actually work. A very common problem while doing this is just to 28, like you just don't even know what values even work, so you sit there guessing different values. -10, once you're at -20, it's gone. Once you're at 0, it's gone, and so you have to, you're guessing, like, you start guessing numbers, -15, it's gone. -8, it's all grass, so there's a really narrow range of values that will actually work on these things. That's the only real downside to this approach. And so you see there's a lot less grass here now. But I could override this. And so I'm going to now show you guys how to override it. And all these parameters that I set, you can just check them and override them. And you can see that the world immediately updates. And so this is why you want to use parameters and why you want to use material instances, because having to recompile and guess when the numbers are in that really narrow range of like -8 to -15 that actually works, it becomes a total pain in the ass. You want to have those things able to be compiled when you make a material that compiles a shader, and then you want to just have the parameters to the material be customizable. So here everything is metal. That's garbage. Turn it off. Roughness. I don't think it's being. It's used for grass. So grass is now super shiny grass. Turn that off. Overwrite the specular highlighting. There you go. So it's reflecting sunlight more now. Turn that off, and I can maybe change the colors, which aren't used anymore. So whatever. Okay. So let's come back into Smartland, and I want to show you guys how to be able to paint a layer on top of the existing layers. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit, and I am going to add here a landscape layer blend node. And so it appears in the thing as layer blend, but the actual term for it is landscape layer blend. If you search for it under layer blend, it doesn't come up. So you have to search for landscape layer blend. And then by default, there's nothing there because there's no layers. And so we have to add layers to our landscape. And I hope I enabled editing layers. We'll find out. So I'm going to add two layers to it. The first layer, I do that by clicking the plus icon. The first layer I'm going to call WAB, the weight world aligned blend. And I will set the preview weight on it to be 1. That's just for previewing. It doesn't really matter. And so I'm going to take the output of you and put you in there. And so you can see it's back to normal. But I want to have the option of painting painting meadows on it. So for the second layer, I'm going to call this one a meadow. Meadow. And what is meadow going to be? Meadow's just going to be my grass material. I'm not going to go to the effort of making anything new because we're running out of time. So basically, when we do this and we apply it, we save it, then the landscape will die. So when you add a layer blend, it will kill your landscape. And it kills your landscapes because, I don't know, it decides it's a good idea to do that. And so what you have to do is you have to come back into the landscaping tool and select paint, and the layers should appear. They're not appearing. Fantastic. Well done. Does this every time. Manage. Enable edit layers. There we go. Do you want to... Yes. I want to enable the edit layers on there. And let's paint. And this is a problem that we had last time, where like the layers just don't show up until like 5 minutes later. And I don't know why it does that. Mesh paint. Brush editing. Select the sun. Let's oh, I know how to do this. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Paint. Layers are not being shown. If you select the landscape again, and you drag the Smartland instance over Smartland instance, nothing happens. Let's drag Smartland over it. There you go. It appeared now. And if we drag Smartland instance back over it, it appeared now. Cool. Well done, Unreal Engine. Well done. So you have to change the material out, then change it back in. If you drag itself on top of itself, it doesn't do anything. Okay, now we've got these different layers here. And the key thing, the reason why everything's broken is because when you've got different layers, you need to create a layer info, which is just a simple object. You just hit OK. Create a weight blended layer, hit OK. And these things just hold where the landscape layers are. Once you've done that, though, you will see that paint radius is way too big. Let's set you down to 500. You'll see that the landscape is back to normal because it'll default to layer 1 by default. So everything's back to normal, but because I've added 2 layers now, I can actually go into paint, and I can paint. I can click on the meadow, and I can paint on here. You'll see the shaders recompile real fast, and I can actually paint grass on top of the rock. See that? So I can override the textures. Okay, and it just, so if there's any areas like here, like if I didn't want grass in here, I could make a layer for rock and just kind of manually touch it up. You know what I mean? And you see it tiles together perfectly. Here, I don't want any rock in here. Just clean it up. Okay. And so that's one thing. I know we're out of time. I'm going to show you guys one other thing real fast. That's how you fix the volcano, except in reverse, right? Rather than having grass up here, you want to have rock. And so I'd just add another, probably do that real fast actually. Layer blend, add a new layer. I'm going to call you rock. So your next homework assignment is going to be doing this. Okay, your next homework assignment is going to be making an auto landscape with water features. So you have to use the river, lake, ocean, and apply, save. Oh, I need to hook up rock. Damn it. Rock is going to be you. And again, we'll save. So your next homework assignment is going to be making a auto texture, an auto generator landscape texture, because whenever you have a landscape that's all one texture, it looks really garbage. And so this now looks a lot better. You can see now it's there. Yeah, cool. Click there, weight blended layer, hit OK. That just kind of saves your stuff. And now if I want to clean up the volcano, I can just spray, shaders compiling. I can just spray paint rock on top of here. You guys understand? So I can just be like, no, we don't want to have grass in the volcano. On the edge of the volcano is fine. Edge of the volcano is fine. That's cool. It's Mount Rainier or whatever. But inside, no, we want it to be a rock. Now, last thing, and I will go first because I know I am out of time, is you can actually generate grass. You can generate grass on top of the different layers. And so I can right click here and choose grass node, landscape grass output, grass node, and I can create 2 different array elements here. One of them is going to be called meadow grass, whatever. And the other one is going to be called rock grass. Do I want rock grass? I probably don't want rock grass, do I? Yeah. No. Why would I want rock grass? Just have meadow grass. Okay. Meadow flowers. Call that. Okay, and then you have to tell it landscape layer sample. So basically, what you do is you hook up layer meadow to layer to the grass, and you have to type in the name exactly like this, meadow, like that. See the things go away, layers go away, and now grass is going to be, anytime I spray paint meadow onto the world, it's going to generate grass for me automatically. What kind of grass? No grass. Look, it's set to none. So what I can do is come in here and just create a new asset, and I'm going to call this Bill meadow grass, like that. And then I browse that in the content browser, double click on meadow grass, come up here. How many grass varieties do I want? I want 5. I want 5 different grass varieties. Cool. I wish these things were a little bit bigger, huh? And so for my first grass, I'm going to pick, do I have daisies? No. What kind of flowers do I have in here? Godetia. Cool, that sounds neat. All right, for the second one, and you can change the density of these things. Default density is a little high, so I'm going to half it. Second one, Glaucoma heterarchia, sure, why not? And again, I'm going to set the weight on that 200. For you, I'm going to set irises. Irises are nice. Irises I'll make more rare, 100, so there will be half as many irises that there will the other 2 of them. For 3, I'm going to pick Narcissus, and for 4, I will pick, do I have a lily or something like that? Sure, whatever that is. Okay. And then I hit save, and then when I come into the world, nothing happens. Meadow, rock. Let's see. Meadow grass, save. Smartland, meadow grass. When we get meadow, did I type in the name wrong? It should generate grass automatically. Maybe if I saved it, it would work. Classic example. There you go. So everywhere that I have spray painted the meadow, you can see there are now lots and lots of beautiful flowers. Frame rate's actually okay with that. You can see all the 5 different varieties of flowers that I put in there. If I come up here, you can see the rock has no... Oh. Get rid of you. There we go. But the areas that are grass don't have any flowers on them. But the areas where I spray painted grass, you've got this really nice, beautiful variety of grass. And I can just come up here and make more meadows. Spray painting meadows. The underlying texture you see doesn't change at all, but I'm just spray painting flowers. And can you affect the law that the flowers spawn at? Yeah, you can. That's one of the parameters. Meadow grass, min lod, right? Cold distance, 10,000. You can choose to cull them once you're 10,000 away. And so, yeah, you just create all these beautiful flowers and cover the world in them if you want. And so you can just, yeah, it's nice. So that's it for today. You guys are going to have to recreate this on your own by next Friday. Smart water, smart landscape texture, smart grass. There is, of course, the foliage tool that allows you to spray paint things anywhere, but we're creating a smart layer on our landscape that will automatically generate flowers for us. And so we can have swamp areas that have swamp flowers, and we can have meadows that have meadow flowers, and cliffs that have little sticks on them that are dead. So it's really fun, and it's a fun assignment, and the landscapes that come out of it look just a lot better than having a single uniform texture over everything. You know, the you know, when you play with it, you can create these things that look pretty decent. You know, there's patches of grass, and then there's some dirt that surrounds the grass. The cliff faces are all rock, you know, rock with maybe a little bit of mud on it, and then the top there's a little layer of grass growing on the top of the rock, you know, and so that just looks a lot more nice and a lot more compelling than a neon green tiled landscape made out of taffy. So using those alpha blending stamps, you can create nice mountains just with a couple clicks with a smart material texture. Yeah, so that's it. That's it for today, guys. I'm going to turn off the recording now. If you have any questions, I will hang out for a little while. Hang out with you guys. Okay, see you.